was always a bright child, but I was always a lazy child. I did the minimum that I could do. And remember I said that my grandmother spoiled me and let me get away with things which I should not have done. And so I did my O-levels when I was about 14, I think. But I did the minimum I can get away with. And I got away with 3 O-levels at 14. And then I then came to live with my mother in England. And she says, you need to smarten up. And so she says, you have 3 months to do 3 more O-levels. And that was the hardest thing ever, because it was an entirely new syllabus. I had no idea about English history. So I did history, economics, and maths, I think. And what was I good at? I was good at, I was kind of good at history, because history is just about a whole lot of stories. And I was good at economics. I was terrible at maths. My other favorite subject actually was English literature. I loved reading English literature. My favorite was always actually Shakespeare. I loved reading Shakespeare. You know, he used to write in that kind of funny way. And when I was young, I used to love going on stage as well. So I was a great amateur actor, or I thought I was. But I loved the language, and I loved the use of the language. University, I didn't get to university. It's because honestly, we didn't have enough money, and so I went out to work. The things which interested me were girls, actually, more than anything else. But actually, I liked sports. I liked sports a lot, and I liked, because I grew up in the West Indies, I liked cricket a lot. I was actually okay at cricket, but the good thing with cricket is even if you're not very good, because it's a whole team of 11, you can get away without being that great. And of course, I liked reading. I loved reading. I loved reading. You know, from a very early age, I remember reading Uncle Tom's Cabin, yes, and making me cry. Yeah. I learned from a very early age that my emotions are important, and because I cried when I read Uncle Tom's Cabin, I am also very happy to cry when I go to see La Traviata, or when I read a story, because the whole thing about a story is it makes you move as a human being. The difference between you and an animal is that you have emotions. Most of my job is about, you know, in Safaricom we say it's about transforming lives. And so if I go to see people in Tana River or in Samburu or in Turkana, and some of the things we did on things like, some of you might remember Kenyans for Kenya, these are all things which I do from my heart. And so what I learned from Uncle Tom's Cabin and all those other books was emotions, and responding to emotions, and then acting on those emotions. That's why I do the job that I do today. I don't do it so you guys can make phone calls. I do it because we can make a difference to people around us. I used to do stuff from the time as I was probably about 12, maybe the same age as some of you guys. And I would do things like I would make ornaments, I'd make brooches. My favorite used to be, you get a coconut shell, you put a pattern on it, you cut it out, you then sand it, and you then varnish it, and then you put a thing at the back, and it either became a pendant or a brooch. And I used to sell those. So from the age of 14, I was always earning money. I mean, not very much money, right up until now. So the first break isn't in the conventional sense, as you would understand. The first break was your first break as a job. What that did for me, and then, you know, when I got to about 16 and I could legally work, because at 12 it's not legal, but at 16 when I could legally work, I then found my first job on a Saturday morning. It used to be called a Saturday boy, working in a shop, opening the store in the morning, cleaning the floor, stacking the shelves, doing all that stuff. And I think that they were my first breaks. And why were they my first breaks? Because, you know, for me, what's important is not that I'm the CEO of Safaricom, and that it is that I am the person that I am. And that was what made me the person I am, because what it helped me to understand was it helped me to understand how those people that you see in the shop, you go to Naivas or Ochumi or Nakumat in the mornings, and you see the people who are stacking the shelves or who are sweeping the floors or, you know, wherever it is. It helped me to understand what it's like to be them. Actually, I know exactly what it's like to be them. One of the things that I've been doing recently is running. I'm not a runner, but I started to run. And then I realized that running is in your head, it's not in your legs. Because sometimes I run, and when I get to 20 minutes, I think, oh man, I just want to stop. And if I think that, I stop. If I think, no, I'm going to run for 30 minutes flat, then I run for 30 minutes flat. And therefore, I have never, ever felt like quitting. You can never, ever feel like quitting, because as soon as you feel like quitting, you will quit. You have to just keep going. The influencing factors is actually you or me, not the external factors, because the external factors are always there. And you can look at the external factors as a challenge or as an opportunity. Now, let me give you an example. When I went to the UK, I was the only black kid in the classroom, right? And I could look at that as being a handicap because I was the only black kid and everyone else was white. I was the only one who had a West Indian accent and everyone else had an English accent. And when I eventually started to work, I was always the only black one there. And I can either say I'm the only black one here and I'm a victim, or you can say I'm the only woman here and I'm a victim. Or I can say, you know what, I'm the special one. And so I always looked at it as being a special one. And even now, I'm the only Guyanese in the company. And when the company was looking for someone to go to South Africa, I was the only black one they could find. And so, voila, it was me. And when they were looking for a black person to come work here, I was the only black one they could find. And so you can either look and be influenced by the external factors, negatively or positively. It's your choice. And I've always chosen to look at it positively, because sometimes you can never change what's happening outside. You know, I'd love to be a musician. You know, I wish I was a musician. One of my children is 20 years old. He is actually a musician, and quite a good musician. What I told him, and the same thing I tell to one of my daughters is 6 years old, is that you have to make sure that you have as many options to choose from. And when you choose carefully and choose the one that you are most passionate about. Don't choose the one that's influencing your dad, that's being influenced by your dad or by your friends or by society. You have to make sure that you leave all of the options open. And part of that is, you know, getting the best qualifications you can. Because if you have that, then you can decide to be a lawyer or a doctor or a poet or whatever. But if you don't, if you lock it down too soon, then you don't have the options. But when you've got the options, choose the ones that you're passionate about. I deal with it by just focusing on what I think is important. And I do what I think is important, not what I think the competitor needs or wants. And you remember at the beginning what I said we do. What we do is different to what our competitors do. We set out to transform lives of people in Kenya. And that's all. We just keep focused on that, and we do it. You know, Rashida talked about passion, and she keeps talking about passion. And it's not just poets and artists and musicians that talk about passion. We talk about passion. And I just do that passionately. I don't worry about the competition. And the result is, you know, we get the loyalty of our customers.